Now at 5 and streaming on crossroadstoday.com, one man is dead after a stabbing at a local motel. A Ganado man receives a 40-year sentence for theft and forgery. And a replica of the Vietnam Wall is now in Victoria.
Coming up in weather, we'll be talking about a winter storm in the southern Rockies. It's going to have something to do with Texas. Also, the tropical storm still in the Gulf. We'll have all that coming up in a moment.
Plus, an appeals court orders a retrial for a Texas 7 death row inmate. You're watching 25 News now at 5. Good afternoon. Thanks for being with us. I'm Don Brubaker. Shauna Curry is on assignment. Victoria police are investigating a death at an area motel. It happened in the 3000 block of Houston Highway. A witness reports two men were having a dispute. One man was trying to get into the hotel room. Eventually he got in, and that's when motel workers heard screaming. And they saw a man with a stab wound holding his throat. Police caught up with the other man who was involved and are investigating to determine exactly what happened. We have an update to a death investigation we first reported on last month on October 19th. Jackson County authorities arrested a 39-year-old Jose Miguel Salazar in the death of his fiancée. She's identified as 24-year-old Jasmine Ramirez. It happened on U.S. Highway 59 near Edna. Authorities are not releasing details on exactly what happened. The couple was from Victoria. A Victoria man faces a charge of deadly conduct, discharge of a firearm. Victoria police arrested 18-year-old Andres Cavazos Tuesday. He is in the Victoria County Jail in lieu of $52,500 bond. A Ganado man was sentenced to 40 years in prison after pleading guilty to theft and forgery charges. 40-year-old Blake Petrash was indicted after admitting to police that he had stolen $3.4 million from his employer in Ganado. The thefts began in 2016 and continued until August 2022. Petrash was sentenced to 3 40-year sentences to run concurrently, one for theft of property and 2 counts of forgery. The Vietnam helicopter that we've heard about the past several months is now at Patriot Park. The Huey helicopter, acquired by Les Weaver, a local Vietnam veteran, came to Victoria in September. A group of veterans moved the helicopter to Patriot Park today to put it on display. The helicopter was first priced at $50,000. Weaver made an offer to buy the helicopter for $40,000. Chapter members express immense pride in the monument, emphasizing its importance in sharing their legacy with future generations and the community.
I thank God that I made it back, and my position over there was taking part of the Vietnam era has a lot of memories.
Huey, the helicopter, is now on display at Patriot Park, welcoming visitors to appreciate the contributions of local veterans. And this brings us to our viewer poll for today. Have you visited the Vietnam helicopter? Yes, no, or you plan to? We thank you for voting. We want to hear from you. Go to crossroadstoday.com/vote to take part, and we'll have the latest on 25 News now at 6. Veterans Day is around the corner as veterans of Victoria bring in the Vietnam Wall. The wall is an 80% replica of the one that's in Washington, D.C. It will be displayed at the Field of Honor on John Stockbauer and Salem Roads. The wall will consist of names from the Korean War and World War I and II. Originally, the vets would meet up for a meal every year for Veterans Day, but decided that things should be different this year.
It means a lot to us to be able to honor the Vietnam veterans. That's what this is about. This is about the Vietnam veterans. And, you know, there were over 58,000 of them that lost their lives. Their names will be on this wall.
The wall will be taken out and put up on November 8th at 8 a.m. Koshian also invites the city of Victoria to come out and celebrate with them. All right. And now let's take a first look at your First Warn Storm Team forecast. Chief Meteorologist Mac Pettis joins us now with a look at what's going on outside. And Mac, another non-chilly day in November.
I'm not sure we're going to need sweaters in November, I tell you. But If you're in New Mexico, you would be using a sweater because we got a nice storm, a winter storm developing. This is great. It's early season snow, and that's important. It's a good start. Meanwhile, to the south, we have that tropical storm, Rafael. Where are these two things going to go? Are they going to run into each other? No, that's not going to happen, but it'll be interesting, and we'll have all your weather coming up in just a few minutes. Back to you, Don.
Mac, thank you. An appeals court orders a new trial for a notorious Texas death row inmate. Randy Halperin was a member of the prison group that became known as the Texas 7. They escaped a South Texas prison in December of 2000, eventually going on a crime spree where they killed Irving police officer Aubrey Hankins on Christmas Eve. Halperin, who is Jewish, appealed his conviction over anti-Semitic remarks a judge made during his trial. The Texas Court of Criminal Appeals agreed. No trial date has been set. Texas State University officials are responding to a protest that forced campus police to step in after things started to escalate. On Wednesday, demonstrators were seen holding inappropriate signs, and some students believe the protest stemmed from the presidential election.
I don't think there's any room for that on this campus.
On the campus of Texas State University, San Marcos, Wednesday afternoon, demonstrators gathered outside the Johnson Student Center holding signs with what some people considered to be offensive language. Cade Crockett was walking to class when he saw what was happening.
I think it's very shameful that people assume that it's okay to promote this behavior, to promote this bigotry.
A statement from a Texas State spokesperson says the university supports the First Amendment and is required by state law to uphold free speech in public areas on campus, even if it upsets students.
I mean, obviously there's like free speech, but like that's just gonna start a fight. Like no matter what side you're on, that's just something crazy to say. And I think they knew that. They just wanted a reaction.
Raymond Walsh was walking with Crockett and says while he didn't want to get involved in the protest, he saw a crowd of students around the demonstrators, and both he and Crockett believe the event stemmed from Tuesday's presidential election results.
There's a bunch of people crowding around. I don't know if anyone's going to fight or something crazy. It's just after Election Day.
A Texas State spokesperson says the demonstrators were not students, nor did they have any affiliations with the school.
But I also believe it was done from a sense of engagement and almost entitlement.
Texas State says the people involved were not arrested and are no longer on that campus. There's also no official reason why this protest took place. The Houston Fire Department is mourning a loss today after losing one of their own while battling a 3-alarm fire last night. 42-year-old Marcelo Garcia succumbed to his injuries from a wall collapse. It happened late Wednesday night just before 11 p.m. when crews were called to a warehouse covered in flames on the east side of the city. A few minutes later, a second alarm was called to have additional reinforcements. A mayday was later called, as well as a third alarm when a wall collapsed, injuring 2 firefighters. One of them suffered minor injuries and is okay, but Garcia died at the hospital. Houston Fire Chief Thomas Munoz said Garcia served with the department for 10 years, the last 6 of which were with Station 23.
Unfortunately, one of our brothers, firefighter Marcelo Garcia, age 42, passed away.
Both Chief Munoz and Mayor Whitmire called Garcia a true hero dedicated to serving the city of Houston. Texas is positioned better than any state to help President-elect Donald Trump carry out his ambitious anti-illegal immigration agenda. But it is also vulnerable to those policies' impacts. To read this full Texas Tribune article, come to our website, crossroadstoday.com. Ever wonder what happens when a heart surgeon swaps the operating room for a classroom? Dr. Yahagi once led life-saving surgeries in Victoria. He's now traded his scalpel for science experiments at Ganado High School. Now he's inspiring the next generation of students, not just with lessons in science, but with life lessons that go way beyond the textbook. Find out how this award-winning teacher is leaving his mark in ways no one expected. Don't miss this 25 News Now Extra with anchor Shauna Curry tonight at 10. Remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Crossroads Today. Hit the like button and click the notification bell. Then you can see Crossroads Today on YouTube. And stay with us. Coming up on 25 News Now at 5, President Biden pledges a peaceful transition after Donald Trump's election win. Also ahead, Volkswagen recalls 114,000 cars over an exploding airbag risk. President Biden addressed the nation from the White House Rose Garden today following Vice President Kamala Harris's loss to President-elect Donald Trump. Biden promised an orderly transfer of power and emphasized, quote, "You cannot love your country only when you win."
President Joe Biden speaking publicly for the first time since the country voted to send Donald Trump back to the White House.
Campaigns are contests of competing visions. The country chooses one or the other. We accept the choice the country made.
He promised a peaceful transition of power and repurposed a line he used often on the campaign trail to draw contrast with Trump before dropping out of the race.
You can't love your country only when you win.
Biden emphasized the integrity of the American electoral system, something Trump repeatedly questioned in the aftermath of the 2020 election, spreading false claims about voter fraud and launching a series of legal challenges in swing states.
It is honest, it is fair, and it is transparent. And it can be trusted, win or lose.
During the remarks, Biden took a moment to speak directly to members of his cabinet and senior staff in the audience and promised to stay committed in the final days of his presidency.
Now we have 74 days to finish the term, our term. Let's make every day count. That's the responsibility we have to the American people.
The president spoke with the president-elect Wednesday to congratulate him on his victory and invite him to the White House. A source familiar says Trump's team is in discussions about when he should visit. It could happen as early as next week. Reporting at the White House, I'm Julia Benbrook.
Volkswagen is recalling 114,000 cars because the driver's side airbags could explode. The recall includes certain 2006 and 07 Passat sedans, 2012 to 2014 Passat models, and 2017 Passat wagons. 2017 to 2019 Beetle and Beetle convertible models are also included in the recall. The Highway Traffic Safety Administration says airbags pose a risk of exploding due to long-term exposure to humidity and high temperatures. Affected owners will be notified by late December. It's an issue that's been in the news a lot lately. Foodborne illnesses can lead to hospitalizations, even death. And every year in the U.S., an estimated 48 million people get sick from their food. Today's Health Minute has the key steps to prevent food poisoning.
The millions of Americans who get sick from foodborne illnesses every year, the CDC estimates 128,000 are hospitalized and 3,000 die.
That just a small number of bacteria can actually cause illness.
Dr. Sanjay Gupta says many of the foodborne illnesses making headlines lately are happening outside the home. He says whoever preps food needs to pay close attention to temperature and avoid the danger zone, which is between 40 and 140 degrees.
So if you're getting cold food, it should be colder than 40 degrees. If you're getting warm food, it should be steaming hot, greater than 140 degrees. Do those things. That'll go a long way towards keeping you safe.
The CDC says protecting against foodborne illness at home can be done with 4 simple steps. First, clean. That means washing your hands before, during, and after preparing food and after handling things like uncooked meat. You should also make sure utensils, cutting boards, and countertops are clean. And rinse fresh fruits and veggies under running water. The next step is separate. Keep raw meat, chicken and poultry, seafood and eggs away from other foods. Don't use the same cutting boards during food prep. Third, cook foods to the right temperature. Using a food thermometer is the only way to do that. Finally, chill. Refrigerate perishable food within 2 hours. For Health Minute, I'm Mandy Gaither.
Brain aging varies between people. A review in genomic psychiatry suggests about half of cognitive decline in old age may trace back to childhood, with factors like exercise, speaking a second language, and playing an instrument. Slowing brain aging, poor sleep, and mental health are major dementia risk factors, though. The findings draw on data from Scotland's Lothian Birth Cohort studies. Here are some of the top headlines in the Victoria Advocate. Danny Garcia won re-election to the Victoria County Commissioner's Court. Many area voters are relieved with the Election Day results. And Keep Victoria Beautiful receives $35,000 to aid its recycling effort. You can read these stories and more at victoriaadvocate.com or pick up a copy at a store near you.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Temperatures again doesn't feel like November out there. We're 74 right about now, but we did manage to get up into the 80s. The 88 was our actual high, observed high. We are supposed to be averaging out at about 77. But for the next couple of days, we've got storms this way and that way that we're going to be watching. We'll have all that coming up in just a moment. Welcome back, everybody. Well, we've got very interesting weather, and of course you might have noticed our winds are pretty strong today. That's because of the developing winter storm in the southern Rockies. You can see how the wind is flowing up all the way into this area. Now, stormy weather has already broke out in the Panhandle, but the snow is still in New Mexico. However, that cold air is going to be rolling out into the plains, sending a frontal system into North Texas. Thing is, the shower or the storm line that's going to develop ahead of it is, in fact, there it is, right about there, will bring stormy weather to much of the northern half of the state. We're just going to be kind of at the tail end of it because we're not getting that much of the activity. And then, of course, we have the hurricane. This is Rafael still rolling around. Now, here's the line of storms I was showing you. This is an up-close version right about there. You can see how they build pretty tall. So this is going to be a very stormy weather for all of the Dallas-Fort Worth area and everybody pretty much north of Austin. And then the snow actually gets into the Texas Plains. So, you know, I don't know, they'll be building snowmen in Amarillo. Not so much for us. But here's Future Tracker, and this is what we expect. First of all, that strong storm line will develop right out ahead of it. It'll be fairly thin. You can see it right about there as we get into Friday. That's Friday morning. Now, Friday night, the tail end of it gets down into our area right about there. But the good news is that it comes in after midnight. So shouldn't have much of a problem in terms of getting football games in on Friday night. And then as it gets out into the Gulf of Mexico, it's going to be colliding with the remnants of Rafael. You can see it right about there. So the front is here. Rafael's sort of falling apart out ahead in front of it. So let's take a closer look at our temperatures for tomorrow. We'll still be on the warm side because, you know, the cold air is way up there. But look at this, 44 the high tomorrow in Amarillo. Yeah, that sounds pretty good. Then, of course, the front will be right about here where you see the cooling temperatures up north. Now, Rafael, right now at 105 miles an hour, okay? It is continuing now to move west. Where is it going? Well, that's the big question. It looks like most of the models agree that instead of taking that right turn that I kept thinking about, that it's going to run into the cold front and then drop south. In fact, by tomorrow, it begins to decrease in intensity. By the time it gets here, it'll be barely a tropical storm, and then the remnants should get pushed down into the Gulf of Mexico. Very interesting development, but it sort of makes sense in the weather world there. Shower activity is possible tomorrow as that line comes through. In the morning hours, that'll be basically just morning humidity and light rain. The bigger stuff will be after midnight, so I don't expect anybody to have any problems with football. Mostly to partly cloudy tomorrow. Temperatures still on the warm and muggy side. So here's what to expect. 40% chance. Then by Saturday, that all decreases. And then by Sunday, we're looking at fairly, comfortable weather. Another front comes in on Monday. And then finally, as we get to the end of the week, we finally cool down to the mid-70s. So that'll be nice. That's your 7-day forecast, reminding everybody we do have a QR code. Love for you to scan that, put Crossroads a day on your phone. And we'll toss it back to Don.
Mac, thank you. And coming up next on 25 News Now at 5, we'll take a look at your stocks. Plus, the Fed cuts interest rates again as inflation falls slowly.
Operating room to the classroom. A former area surgeon is making an impact in a whole new way. Find out how this award-winning teacher at Ganado High School traded scrubs for science.
If I can spread my knowledge and skills as much as I can to all those young people in medical, any type of science, math, I'd be happy.
And why the community can't stop singing his praises. Join anchor Shauna Curry for From Scalpel to Science, a 25 News Now Extra, Thursday night at 10.
Taking a look at your stocks, the Dow is down 0.59 points. The S&P 500 is up 44 points. The Nasdaq is up 286 points, and oil is up 39 cents to $72.09 per barrel. The Federal Reserve cut interest rates 1/4 point Thursday. It is the second rate cut this year. In September, the Fed cut rates by 1/2 point. The central bank kept rates at a 2-decade high for a year to rein in inflation before the first rate cut. Inflation has been falling, but not as quickly as estimated. Initial jobless claims rose slightly last week, as expected, but Americans are staying unemployed for longer. The Labor Department reports 221,000 initial claims for unemployment insurance last week. That's up 3,000 from the week before. Continuing claims rose by 39,000 to 1.89 million for the week ending October 26th, reaching the highest level since November 2021. The job market is cooling as slowing job growth reflects fewer hirings rather than increased layoffs. Stay with us. We'll take one last look at your forecast. Plus, a rare 77-year-old wedding cake slice from Queen Elizabeth's wedding sells. And now here's a look at what's coming on World News Tonight, right after 25 News Now at 5.
Tonight, with Donald Trump headed back to the White House in 2025 for a second term and control of the House still in play, the close races that could impact the balance of power. World News Tonight with David Muir is the most watched newscast in America.
A rare slice of the cake served at Queen Elizabeth II and Prince Philip's wedding sold for $2,800 this week. The cake has survived for almost 8 decades since their wedding day in 1947. Alongside the cake is a letter from Elizabeth thanking a guest for a wedding present. Elizabeth and Philip's wedding cake was an extravagant 9-foot-tall creation. It weighed a whopping 500 pounds. A few other slices have also survived the decades and have been sold at auction. In 2013, one sold for $2,300 at auction. Wow.
It must have been, they've kept it refrigerated, right?
I would hope so.
Okay, so the refrigerator's been around for 80 years.
That's right.
Well, that's so.
Or unless they moved it to another one in between.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's interesting because you just can't leave cake out there. I know for a fact.
Yeah, whoa.
It doesn't last that
sound
long.
good.
No, it doesn't. I was in college.
Oh, I see. Oh.
So I thought I'd eat a cake that was a month old. Anyway, folks, we've got some warm weather again for your Friday. The frontal system, fortunately, won't be here till maybe after midnight, so I don't think that whatever showers we get are going to be interfering with football. It's just a little weak front as far as this weekend is concerned, and of course we'll be watching Rafael, which should be falling apart in the Gulf over the coming weekend.
All right, thank you, Mac, and thanks for being with us. We'll see you back here tonight for 25 News Now at 6. World News Tonight with David Muir is up next.